CEO Live Talks.
I am Dr. Swanee Jett, and I have a passion for public health for over 30 years. Now, I'm in a position to affect change, and these are the critical conversations about health in our community with the people who can help me make those changes. Good morning. Welcome to CEO Live Talks. I'm your host, Dr. Swanee Jett. Today I have a special guest, Mr. Fleming. He's going to tell us a lot about his life and his organization. Welcome to the set, sir.
Appreciate you.
So, first and foremost, before we get started, you got an event coming up,
Big one.
right?
Big one.
So, tell me a little bit about this event that's coming up.
So this is our first inaugural gala. Sowing Seeds with Faith is celebrating 7 years of existence. 7 years biblically means the year of completion. So we felt like it was worthy of a celebratory opportunity, and we combined it with a fundraiser.
Okay.
So this Saturday at 6 o'clock p.m. we'll be at the Muhammad Ali Museum, celebrating 7 years of impact.
So, you're fundraising. What will the funds go to?
So our overall goal, the end goal for us, is to build a facility that encompasses all aspects of academic, sports, arts, theater, spiritual. So it's like an empowerment center. So we consider it like an apartment complex of resources. So imagine one facility that has 10 to 12 nonprofits housed in that one space. So a kid can really get full wraparound services. So this fundraiser will raise enough money to buy the property to sow the seed to start that building.
So, I love the name, Sowing Seeds with Faith. Tell me, how did you come up with that concept?
Funny story. So originally the program was going to be, I don't look like what I've been through. And I have a godmom is like, chocolate, that's a great concept, but it's a little lengthy. But she's like, what do you really want to do? I'm like, I really just want to make a difference. And she said, well, how? I said, well, if I can just pour into a lot of kids and break some generational cycles and implement generational wealth, I think I'll be doing, my work. She said, so you want to sow into people? And I'm like, yes, ma'am. She's like, well, there's a scripture in the Bible about sowing seeds, and that all seeds don't sow in good soil, but all seeds do produce. Some fall on concrete, some go in sand, and some go in good soil. So we're going to call it Sowing Seeds with Faith. So all you can do is sow the seed. It's all you can control. And then you have faith that what you sow is going to perpetuate something successful beyond your wildest dreams.
That is interesting to have that concept, ideology. So, having somebody to have faith. How has faith helped you throughout your life?
Oh, man.
Because you had to listen, to that conversation and then implement it.
So even with the faith component, me personally, it's always been, you have to believe in something bigger than yourself. So we don't perpetuate any kind of religion or Christianity or spirituality on youth. We just tell them and parents, it has to be bigger than you. The saying that we lean on is, you never see a tree eat its own fruit. So everything that come out of you is for the world to eat off of. It's not about you. So you got to believe in something bigger. It got to be a bigger cause. So you just got to have faith in something bigger than you. So that's what I've leaned on. That's what I believed in. I ain't always been who I am. So I know it was somebody else praying for me harder than I prayed for myself. It was somebody believing in me more than I believed in myself. And then people had enough faith in me to be able to mature this program into what it's become.
So, for somebody to develop that ideology and have that concept and have faith, so bring me back to the beginning. Damarrion, as a young man growing up, tell me about the dynamics of your family. And where did you grow up? Because I know you grew up in Louisville.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised Louisville, Kentucky. I'm the youngest of three. My mom, we started out in Douglas Park Apartments out 3rd Street, one way in, one way out. So that's the epitome of what a project is. It's one way in, one way out. In 1997, my mom bought a house. The airport was kind of being built and relocated. We moved on 7th and Manslick in Nicholas Meadows Circle.
I'm familiar with that.
So the house that my mom bought, around the neighborhood, though, you had Watterson Lakeview, you had Greystone, you had Bradford Point, you had Georgetown, you had Carpenter. So right in the middle of this subdivision was surrounded by a lot of project and low
I'm
income
very
housing
familiar.
neighborhoods,
I'm
right?
very familiar with that.
So that's where we grew up. But even in that space, the blessing in that is that even though I was in the center, the people around me would remind me that, you're not a product of your environment because you have a backyard.
Right.
And I was like, what? They're like, you got a backyard, you got a deck, you got a slab and patio door. And those was things that kids consider privilege in my growing
Right.
up. So I understood that and I didn't take that for granted and I appreciated that. So when, my mom was 4'11". Today's her 60th birthday. She was very, very strict. And the same year that we moved into that house, my mother's oldest son was sentenced to 17 years in federal penitentiary.
Wow.
And at that time, in my mind, at a 10-year-old boy, my mother was really mean in my mind at 10. As I got older, my mother was scared. She was saying, I've lost one, I won't lose a second.
Yeah.
So what she did was she changed the dynamics. So my mom didn't believe in idle time. So every weekend, when I was growing up, you was either in Black Achievers, Upward Bound, you was a Whitney Young Scholar, you was in Lincoln Foundation. Every Saturday, you was doing something.
So get your time occupied.
Get your time occupied, right? So that became normal for me. I was an outside kid. If I had to stay in the house, because I was in trouble.
Okay.
The minute the sun come up, I'm outside. When the street lights come on, I was back in the house.
Right.
And my mother believed in that. And I played Little League football at California Jets. I was in the California community growing up. That was another family, part of the village. And then I got into Louisville Middle High School as a freshman. And my mother was really, really strong on academics. I played football. I was really good at football, but my mother really didn't care about sports.
Right.
She was like, sports is not going to take you where you're trying to go.
Right.
And she told me that as a ninth grader who was playing varsity with
Right.
Mike Bush and the guys.
Okay.
And I thought I was doing something great. And she was like, you 5'6", son, and you can't outrun nobody.
That's a cold.
She was an honest mom. And, only thing that played in I was really quick as a kid. I wasn't fast.
I'd have been like, Mom, I'm going to run track.
You know what I mean? Look, Swan, even though I got on the track world, my track coach, Mark Miller, who was a 400 national record holder at University of Kentucky, was like, listen, man, you ain't going to make a lot of impact right here on this track.
Right.
But you can go down here to this sand and see what they got to offer you. So I became a triple jumper.
Okay.
Right? Never even heard of the sport.
That's very difficult to do.
Never even understood the concept. But went down there and triple jump. And by the time I was junior, I was placing, I won the region. I came in third in the regions and was able to qualify for state and triple jump.
Okay.
So my family dynamics, man, my mom was very strict. Me and my sister, once my brother went to penitentiary, me and my sister, we 2 years apart. She's older, really, really close. That was like my mom. My mom worked at JCYC, which is the Youth Detention Center here in Louisville, for 22 years. So she worked 16-hour days, 5 days a week. And the 2 days she was off, she slept.
I'm sure she did.
So my sister was really that instrumental component, and even though we was 2 years apart, we was 3 grades apart.
Okay.
So my freshman year, she was a 12th grade at Butler High School. I was at Mill. My 10th grade year, she go to Lindsey Wilson College.
Okay.
But still, even out through high school, my sister would call every morning. Are you on time for school? What's your grades?
So she sort of took more of the leadership, especially the time your mother needed to rest.
Right. So she was very, very instrumental in a lot of my growth. And I didn't get in a lot of trouble, man. At a very young age, I was actually very mature for my age. Again, very disciplined, well-mannered. I checked a lot of boxes at a very young age because I understood that I had to.
But it still was difficult because I know Seventh and Manslick. Like I remember growing up in Chicago, even though my neighborhood was sort of decent at one time, I still had to walk through other neighborhoods, right? So what was that like? Because I remember that area very well.
It wasn't, the times was different. It wasn't a lot of cell phones.
Right.
So you had to have some kind of social skills.
The cell phones then in '95 was that big. It was a handheld you had to take to the car.
And I'm gonna tell you, my first cell phone was a Nokia. And you had to buy a prepaid phone card from the store over in Greystone.
Right.
And the $10 only got you like 30-something minutes, but your first minute was free. So when people call, like, all right, man, you got 50 seconds, man, I'm gonna call you right back. Call me right back. So in the neighborhoods, man, everybody that lived around me, and I lived by the bus compound, so everybody in my neighborhood went to various schools, but male, there was a really high male population.
Okay.
Male high school. So my best friend lived in Carpenters, had a really best friend in Watterson, so I was able to go to those neighborhoods. If you can play sports, man, you separate yourself.
You separate yourself, and actually, going to mail help,
Oh, for
and the
sure.
busing system actually helped.
For
So
sure.
people might have talked about the bus system really hurt, but going backwards, if you looked at it, you would have never been able to go to mail without busing.
Not a chance.
Okay.
Not a chance. But I lived right by the bus compound. So right next to Jacob Elementary was the Dietrich bus compound.
Mm-hmm.
So if you, by living by that bus compound, if you lived in my neighborhood, you can go to any school because you can walk to the compound.
Right.
Right. So
Makes sense.
that might have, if I'm being honest, it might have saved a lot of kids' life.
Neighborhood schools, that concept is good, but every school got to look the same. I want my Shawnee Western to look just like Mel,
Correct.
to look like St. X, right? To look like Manual. I need all schools to be the same, have the same quality teachers, same amount of money going to those schools.
True.
And I know they say that it takes alumni and boosters to put back in PTOs, but what if you live in an impoverished neighborhood? Are you expecting the same dynamic of economics to be able to put into the school?
So they started this program years ago called No Child Left Behind.
Right.
And the No Child Left Behind Act was really supposed to be an equitable investment in all schools having an equal amount of resources.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we know
Right.
that wasn't
And it didn't, a child got pushed ahead, so they didn't get left behind.
So they pivoted to that. It was supposed to be whatever textbooks you give to Mel, Shawnee should get those same
Correct.
textbooks. But then they pivoted to where, well, we're not gonna let no kid fail.
Right.
So then they start pushing kids through the system like, well, we ain't gonna let no kid.
And now they don't know how to write.
Come on, man.
Read correctly.
Talk about it, man. Early on in my career, when I first graduated from college, I was a school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I taught algebra and calculus.
Mm-hmm.
2 years algebra at Myers Middle School, which is now no longer a school. It's called
I
the Phoenix
remember that
School of
school.
Discovery now. And then 1 year at Shawnee High School. And one of my story I talk about a lot of people is that when I was in that school, man, I was really a course recovery teacher.
Right.
So you only came to my class if you had already failed something already. Well, I had a kid in my program, in my class, who was one of the star basketball players. Well, senior year, he really couldn't read, Dr. Jet.
Wow. He's a senior.
Senior.
And he can't read.
Really, he was dyslexic, but he's never been diagnosed because he never had an ARC meeting or got an IEP
Right.
to help his situation.
Which that would have helped if he had IEP.
So I'm telling him, you can score whenever you want.
Right.
But if you can't get NCAA clearinghouse, your options is limited. So I said, why don't you come meet with me on a regular before, and I will help you. Like, man, Mr. Fleming, I just try and graduate and go play ball. That's all he kept saying. Well, in order for him to graduate, I had to sign off on his assessment.
Right.
I'm like, I'm not gonna sign that for you because you're not giving me the effort that I know you're capable of giving me to get to the next level. Well, there was a meeting in the principal's office. This is March. In the ARC meeting, I refused to sign off. Every teacher signed off, I'm not signing that. They said,
Right.
we need full 100% signatures for this kid to be passed. I was suspended from JCPS with pay for the rest of the year.
And they made him graduate.
That kid graduated, had a graduation party that he invited me to. I loved him. We had a really good relationship.
Right.
At that graduation party, an altercation breaks out. The running joke in the school building was, he can't read. So in the middle of his graduation party, an altercation breaks out and somebody yells, that's why your dumb A cannot read. He responds, he pulls out a gun and he shoots. Female. Male shot female. He really was not shooting, in my opinion, to kill this little girl.
Right.
But she bled out. Now he is sitting in penitentiary with a life sentence for murder, all because we refused to hold him accountable.
Right.
That was my last year at JCPS. Sowing Seeds with Faith was started 2 years after that.
So I got to dive into this. Have you visited him since he's been in jail?
Every month. Every month, whether it's a
And
visit or a phone call, I'm in contact with him. He understands my heart. He understands that it was no love. He understands the accountability aspect, but it took him to go sit down.
so, what does he think now? What is his mind frame?
Man, he done converted to Muslim. He understand. He read law books. He understands concepts. He understands ideologies. He doesn't have any children. He doesn't. His mother passed a year ago. We was able to write a letter for him to be able to come home and bury his mother. He feels like that his story, when he come home, is going to change the world. He's writing a book. He reads probably a book. He said, I can read a book a day, Mr. Fleming. Very smart young man. Very smart. He said, not only can I read, I can write a thesis. I can write a whole dissertation now. So I feel like when you talk about making an impact, when God wants your attention, he going to get it.
Right.
So God had to isolate him so that he can educate him.
Right.
Because had he remained free, his mind would have never been changed.
Did he feel? Because I know he had to feel some resentment that you didn't sign off on it initially.
I don't know. We've never really dove into that. When I talk to him to this day, he's 26 now.
Okay.
You know, it's been almost 9 years. He understands because of what I do,
He
the way I
understand
love,
why you did it.
and not just for him. It's what I do for a living now.
Right.
So every black and brown, orange, green, yellow, I don't care what color, the level of accountability is going to be, is not going to change.
Right.
My program is kind of like the military. Meet, beat, and exceed all expectations and non-negotiable.
Right.
Because it's not if you can, it's if you will.
Right.
It's will over skill. Some people can, but only a few do.
So he goes to prison. He might have been upset with you not signing off on it. But then he had to come back to you and realize what you did for him, what you was trying to do for him.
If you talk to him right now, you know what he would say? You saved my life. Not from death, but being alive and not having life.
Right.
He said, I would have been a walking, talking dummy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had life to
Right.
be able to give life. And then not only am I in this predicament, then I give birth to a son that I can't even pour into.
Right.
I create a family that I can't provide for.
Right.
So, you know, he would say, you know, that's it, Dr. J, I really want to know how he really feels. I never really asked him because our conversations be very, you know, elite. You know what I mean? It's more like, man, where we at, where we going, what's the plan?
You looking
He
at
goes up for
downstream.
parole in about another 6 years.
Yeah.
He's going to try to fight it to get a 4-year parole.
Right.
And he's been reading the laws, and a lot of laws have changed that kind of play into his favor. So he's doing his due diligence.
Right.
But he said he don't want to rush God.
You know, and the reason I asked the question is something to really bring up to him, because I'm sure the parole board is going to ask this question. It's like, you know, where's your moral compass now? If you had a chance to go back and reflect, what would you do different? And then that question will have to come to you as well, because, you know, sowing seeds with faith has the opportunity to change how JCPS interacts with just pushing kids forward.
Correct.
And not making sure that they get the knowledge that they need before they leave. Because the way I look at it, when I turned 17, I left to go to college. I supposed to have everything to equip me with
Correct.
in the world, because I left the nest and I didn't have a food chain to help me. Wasn't no duckies coming in the mail.
Right.
I didn't have that resource. So, you know, the question for you is, that story is very significant, and you're launching your organization. How can you change JCPS method on No Child Left Behind? Because they're still pushing some kids forward.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's important.
I don't know, Dr. J, if you can change that system.
Right.
You can impact the system, though. That system is systemic. So you gotta go dig up some roots to create real change. And I don't believe the JCPS system is broken. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do for who it was designed to do it for.
Okay.
Now, some people that look like me and you might not be part of the who.
Right. Right.
So systemically, there are people like Dr. Delquan Dorsey and the DEI department, Dr. Marshall, who are impacting the system. I don't know if you can change it. And what Sowing Seeds with Faith decided to do, now I could have kept teaching and kept complaining.
Right.
So I said, you know what? I can't break this system. I can create a system that is subsidiary, that supports JCPS's efforts for those that it has.
So let me ask this question, because this is important. You got suspended, right?
A few times.
Anybody ever come back to you and apologize for that situation?
I don't think nobody owed me one.
When the people in that scenario were part of the problem. Because if everybody stood up and said he ain't ready to graduate, then it wasn't just, because who suspended you has to be held accountable. Everybody has to be held accountable for how this man turned out of life. Now, part of it is he brought upon himself, right? But the other part is like a person with no teeth. They won't smile, and it's a mental health issue. If you call it out, somebody might hit you in the face. They might retaliate back. But because of the self-shame and the self-guilt, because the system didn't properly train them and pass them along, and even to the extent that they were willing to suspend you just to get them out of school, everybody is at fault. The one person that stood up against the regime got ridiculed. So, yeah, they owe you an apology.
I feel like a drug dealer doesn't know he's doing wrong if nobody tells him.
Correct.
A drug dealer does not realize he's part of the problem because of what comes with the lifestyle. A lot of people at that table don't look like me and you. So unless somebody exposes the fact that you don't have any teeth,
Right.
so unless somebody exposes the fact that what you're doing is wrong, and you're ignorant to the fact because it's a system that's been implemented, so you feel like if I've been doing it for these amount of years, it had to be right because nobody has ever told me it was wrong.
Right.
If I drive down a one-way street every day for 10 years and nobody tell me to go the wrong direction, in my mind, that's not a one-way street. So I hear what you're saying, but that system is so deeply rooted with people who don't look like me, walk like me, and talk like me, that they're almost trained to believe that what they're doing is right. Now, when I got suspended, that was one person's decision. It wasn't a collaborative. That one person did not ever come speak to me. Never. Actually, he was promoted from principal to superintendent.